The Huayanzi. 1. Originating the way. 1.1. As for the way, it covers heaven and upholds earth. It extends the 4 directions and divides the 8 endpoints. So high, it cannot be reached. So deep, it cannot be fathomed. It embraces and enfolds heaven and earth. It endows and bestows the formless. Flowing along like a wellspring, bubbling up like a font. It is empty but gradually becomes full. Roiling and boiling. It is murky but gradually becomes clear. Therefore, pile it up vertically, it fills all within heaven and earth. Stretch it out horizontally, it encompasses all within the 4 seas. Unwind it limitlessly, it is without distinction between dawn and dusk. Roll it out, it expands to the 6 coordinates 1. Roll it up, it does not make a handful. It is constrained but able to extend. It is dark but able to brighten. It is supple but able to strengthen. It is pliant but able to become firm. It stretches out the 4 binding cords too and restrains yin and yang. It suspends the cosmic rafters and displays the 3 luminaries. Intensely saturating and soaking. Intensely subtle and minute. Mountains are high because of it. Abysses are deep because of it. Beasts can run because of it. Birds can fly because of it. The sun and moon are bright because of it. The stars and timekeepers move because of it. Quillies wander freely because of it. Phoenixes soar because of it. 1/138. 1.2. The 2 august lords of high antiquity 3 grasped the handles of the way, and so were established in the center. Their spirits mysteriously roamed together with all transformations, and thereby pacified the 4 directions. Hence, they could revolve like the heavens and stand still like the earth. Cycle round and round without stopping. Flowing unceasingly like water. They ended and began together with all things. As winds arose and clouds formed, there was no event to which they did not respond. As thunder rumbled and rain descended, to all they responded without end. Ghosts departed and spirits entered. Dragons arose and phoenixes alighted. Like the potter's wheel turning, like the wheel hub spinning. They circled round and round, both carved and polished. They returned to the Yu 4. They acted non-actively and were united with the Way 5. They spoke non-actively and were suffused by its potency 6. They were peaceful and without cares and attained harmony. Although there were a myriad of different things in the world, they accorded with their various natures. Their spirits could concentrate on something as small as the tip of an autumn hair 7 and something as vast as the totality of space and time 8. Their potency accorded with heaven and the earth and harmonized yin and yang, delimited the 4 seasons and attuned the 5 phases 9. Because it affectionately supported and nurtured them. The myriad things nourished their vitality. It could seep into grasses and trees, and soak into metal and rock 10. Among the multitude of kinds of wild beasts, the hairs of their coats were sleek and moist. Their feathers and wings fluttered. Their horns and antlers grew. The embryos of beasts were not stillborn. The eggs of birds were not infertile. Fathers were spared the grief of mourning their sons. Elder brothers were spared the sadness of mourning their younger brothers. Children did not become orphans. Wives did not become widows. Double rainbows did not appear. Baleful stars did not occur. 11. This is all the result of the potency with which they were imbued. January 1st, 2010. 17. 1.3. The most exalted way generates the myriad things but does not possess them. Completes the transforming images. 12 but does not dominate them. Creatures that walk on hooves and breathe through beaks, that fly through the air and wriggle on the ground, depend on it for life, yet none understands its potency. Depend on it for death, yet none is able to resent it. Those who attain it and profit are unable to praise it. Those who use it and lose are unable to blame it. It gathers and collects yet is not any richer for it. It bestows and confers yet it not diminished by it. It cycles endlessly yet cannot be fathomed. It is delicate and minute yet cannot be exhausted. Pile it up, but it will not get higher. Collapse it, but it will not get lower. Add to it, but it will not increase. Take away from it, but it will not decrease. Split it, but it will not get thinner. Kill it, but it will not be destroyed. Bore into it, but it will not deepen. Fill it in, but it will not get shallower. Hazy. Nebulous. You cannot imagine it. Nebulous. Hazy. Your use will not exhaust it. Dark. Obscure. It responds formlessly. Deep. Penetrating. It does not act in vain. It rolls and unrolls with the firm and the pliant. It bends and straightens with the yin and the yang. January 1st, 2019. 24. 1.4. In ancient times when Fegyi and Dabing rode chariots, they rose up in thunder carts and entered the cloudy rainbow. They roamed in the ethereal mists and galloped in the hazy and nebulous. Going farther and higher, they reached the pinnacle. They traversed the frost and snow but left no tracks. Illuminated by the light of the sun, they cast no shadows. Spiraling around, they ascended the whirlwind. Traversing mountains and rivers, they strode over Mount Kunlun. Pushing through the Changhe gate, they surged through the gateway of heaven. 13. If we compare this with the charioteering in recent times, although there are lightweight carts and good horses, strong whips and sharp prods, they cannot compete with or overtake them. 14. Therefore, the great man calmly has no worries, and placidly has no anxieties. He takes heaven as his canopy, earth as his carriage, the four seasons as his steeds, and yin and yang as his charioteers. He rides the clouds and soars through the sky to become a companion of the power that fashions and transforms us. Letting his imagination soar, and relaxing his grip, he gallops through the vast vault of the heavens. When appropriate, he canters his steeds. When appropriate, he gallops them. He orders the master of rain to moisten the byways, and directs the master of wind to sweep away the dust. He takes lightning as his lash, and thunder as his chariot wheels. Above, he roams freely in the misty and murky realms. Below, he emerges from the gateway of the boundless. Having observed all around and illuminated everything, he returns to guarding the One, in order to remain whole. He superintends the four corners of earth, yet always turns back to the central axis. Thus, with heaven as your canopy, nothing will be uncovered. With earth as your carriage, nothing will be unsupported. With the four seasons as your steeds, nothing will be unemployed. With yin and yang as your charioteers, nothing will be incomplete. Therefore, why is it that he hastens forth but does not wobble, goes far but does not weary? His four limbs do not weaken. His perceptual acuity does not diminish. And he comprehends the shapes and outlines of the 8 outlying regions and the 9 fields of the heavens. It is because he grasps the handles of the way and roams in the land of the inexhaustible. January 1st, 26. February 1st, 2011. 1.5. Therefore, the affairs of the world cannot be deliberately controlled. You must draw them out by following their natural direction. The alterations of the myriad things cannot be fathomed. You must grasp their essential tendencies and guide them to their homes. When a water mirror comes in contact with shapes, it is not because of wisdom and precedent that it is able to flawlessly reflect the square, round, crooked, and straight 15. Therefore, the echo does not respond at random, and the shadow does not independently arise. They mimic sounds and forms and tacitly grasp them. That which is tranquil from our birth is our heavenly nature. Stirring only after being stimulated, our nature is harmed. When things arise and the spirit responds, this is the activity of perception. When perception comes into contact with things, preferences arise. When preferences take shape and perception is enticed by external things, our nature cannot return to the self, and the heavenly patterns are destroyed. 16. Thus those who break through to the way do not use the human to change the heavenly. Externally they transform together with things, but internally they do not lose their genuine responses. They attain nothing, but their needs are provided for. They are always on the move but find a place to lodge for the night. Small and great, tall or short, each has its proper role. The myriads spring forth and leap and prance in profusion, yet they do not lose track of their norms. 17. So when they rest above, the people do not find them heavy. When they are located in front, the multitudes do not injure them. All the world returns to them. The wicked and perverse fear them. It is because they do not compete with the myriad things that none is able to compete with them. February 1st, 2011. 19. 1.6. Now if someone spends an entire day pole fishing along a riverbank, he will not be able to fill up even a hand basket, even though he may have hooked barbs and sharp spears, fine line and fragrant bait, and, in addition, the skills of Zedahi or Wanzua. 18. He would still be unable to compete with the catch hauled in by a trawling net. Or suppose a bowman were to stretch out the famous Wu Hao bow and fit it with the fine arrows from Kui and add to this the craft of Yi or Feg Megzi. 19. If he wanted to hunt birds in flight, he would still be unable to match the amount caught by a gauze net. Why is this? It is because what he is holding is small, by comparison. If you stretch out the world and make it your basket, and follow the courses of rivers and oceans and make them your trawling net, How could you lose any fish or miss any birds? Thus the arrow cannot match the spear cannot match the trawling net, but the trawling net cannot match the formless image. 20. February the 1st, 2125. Now if you let go of the great way and rely on inferior methods. 21. This is no different from using a crab to catch a rat or a frog to catch a flea. It is insufficient to prevent wickedness and block depravity. It will only cause disorder to increase. In ancient times, Gun 22 of Shia made a city wall 24 feet high. 23. But the lords of the land turned against him, and those who dwelled beyond the seas had deceitful hearts. His son, U24, understood that the world had become rebellious and thereupon knocked down the wall, filled in the moat surrounding the city, gave away their resources, burned their armor and weapons, and treated everyone with beneficence. And so the lands beyond the 4 seas respectfully submitted, and the 4 Yi tribes brought tribute. When he assembled the lords of the land on Mount Dew, there were people from myriad principalities who brought in gifts of jade and silk. Thus when a deceitful heart is hidden in your chest, your inner purity will not glisten and your spirit-like potency will not be whole. When what lies within your own person is not known to you, how can people from afar cherish you? Therefore when the armor is hard, the weapons are sharper. When city walls are built, battering rams are made. It is like using boiling water to reduce the boil, the disorder will simply increase. Therefore if you lash a snapping dog or whip a kicking horse in order to teach them, although you be as gifted as Yin 25 or Zerofu 26, you will not be able to transform them in this way. But if the heart that wishes to harm others disappears from within you, then you can pull the tail of a hungry tiger. How much more can you tame such things as dogs and horses? Therefore those who embody the way are relaxed and never exhausted. Those who rely on inferior methods work hard but achieve little. 1/3/17. Resorting to harsh laws and arbitrary punishments is not the practice of hejimos and kings. Repeatedly using sharp whips is not the method of those who travel far. Li Zedu's 27 vision was so acute that he could pick out the tip of a needle beyond 100 paces, but he could not see the fish in the deep. Music master Kyog's 28 hearing was so accurate that he could harmonize the tones of the 8 winds, yet he could not hear anything beyond 10 li. Thus relying on the talents of one person is insufficient to govern a holding of 3 mu. But if you comply with the norms of the way 29 and follow the naturalness of heaven and earth, then none within the 6 coordinates will be able to be your equal. Therefore, when you drained the flood, he followed the water as his master. When the divine farmer 30 sowed grain, he followed the seedlings as his teacher. 1/3/913. 1.7. Plants like duckweed take root in water. Plants like trees take root on land. Birds beat their wings in the air in order to fly. Wild beasts stomp on solid ground in order to run. Serpents and dragons live in the water. Tigers and leopards live in the mountains. This is the nature of heaven and earth. 31. When 2 pieces of wood are rubbed together, they make fire. When metal and fire are pushed together, the metal becomes molten. Round things always spin. Hollow things excel at floating. This is their natural propensity. Therefore, when spring winds arrive, then sweet rains will fall, they vitalize and nurture the myriad things. Those with wings sit on their nests and hatch eggs. Those with hair gestate and give birth to their young. Grasses and trees become lush and flowering. Birds and wild beasts have eggs and embryos. No one sees what affects these things, but these achievements are completed. The autumn winds cause frost to descend. And the living things, that are reached by the frost, are snapped and injured. Eagles and falcons hawkishly seize their prey. Swarming insects hibernate. Grasses and trees die back to their roots. Fish and tortoises plunge together into the deep. No one sees what affects these things, they just disappear into the formless. Tree dwellers nest in the woods. Water dwellers live in caves. Wild beasts have beds of straw. Human beings have houses. Hilly places are suitable for oxen and horses. For travel by boat, it is good to have a lot of water. The Xiaogu produce rancid animal skin garments. The Ga and Yu peoples make thin clothes of pure area fabric 32. Each produces what it urgently needs. In order to adapt to the aridity or dampness, each accords with where it lives. In order to protect against the cold and the heat, all things attain what is suitable to them. Things accord with their niches. From this viewpoint, the myriad things definitely accord with what is natural to them, so why should sages interfere with this? March 1, 2015 22. 1.8. To the south of the 9 passes, tasks on dry land are few, while tasks on water are many. So the people cut their hair and tattoo their bodies in order to resemble scaly creatures. They wear short pants, not long trousers, in order to make swimming easier. And they have short sleeves in order to make poling their boats easier. In doing this, they are adapting to their natural environment. To the north of the Yam Pass, the Di tribes do not eat grain. They devalue the aged and value the strong, and it is accustomed to esteem those with strength of vital energy. People there do not unstring their bows, nor do they remove the bridles from their horses. In doing this, they are adjusting to their natural environment. Thus when you went to the country of the naked, he removed his clothes when he entered and put them back on when he left. In doing this, he was adapting to his natural environment. Nowadays, if those who transplant trees neglect the yin and the yang aspects of their natures, then none will not wither and die. Thus if you plant a mandarin orange tree north of the Yangtze, it will transform into an inedible orange. A minor bird cannot live beyond, i.e., to the north of, the Kui River, and if a badger 33 crosses, to the south of, the minimum river, it will die. Physical form and innate nature cannot be changed, 34 and propensity and locale cannot be shifted. Therefore, those who break through to the way return to clarity and tranquility. Those who look deeply into things end up not acting on them. If you use calmness to nourish your nature, and use quietude to transfix your spirit, then you will enter the heavenly gateway. March 1, 24 a quarter /3. What we call heaven is pure and untainted, unadorned and plain, and has never begun to be tainted with impurities. What we call human is biased because of wisdom and precedent, devious and deceptive. It is what looks back to past generations and interacts with the vulgar. Thus, that the ox treads on cloven hooves and grows horns, and that the horse has a mane and square hooves. This is heavenly, i.e., natural. Yet to put a bit in a horse's mouth, and to put a ring through an ox's nose, this is human. Those who comply with heaven roam with the way. Those who follow the human interact with the mundane. Now, you cannot talk to a fish in a well about great things because it is confined by its narrow space. You cannot talk to a summer bug about the cold because it is restricted to its season. You cannot talk to petty scholars about the utmost way because they are confined by the mundane and bound up by their teaching. Thus sages do not allow the human to obscure the heavenly, and do not let desire corrupt their genuine responses. They hit the mark without scheming. They are sincere without speaking. They attain without planning. They complete without striving. Their vital essence circulates into the magical storehouse, and they become human along with what fashions and transforms them. A /510. 1.9. When an excellent swimmer sinks and an excellent rider falls, it is because, contrary to expectations, each has taken what he is fond of and used it to make misfortune for himself. Therefore, those who are fond of striving never miss falling into a trap, and those who compete for gain are never not exhausted. In ancient times, the strength of Gong Gong was such that he butted his head against Buzhou Mountain and caused the earth to tilt toward the southeast. He competed with Guozi 35 in order to become the Thiak. Subsequently he disappeared into an abyss, his entire clan was destroyed, and the ancestral sacrifices of his clan line were cut off. The king of Yu fled to a cave in the mountains, but the people of Yu smoked him out, 36, and subsequently he had no choice but to return with them. When we look at things from this point of view, attainment lies with the right moment and does not lie in competing with others. Good order lies in the way and does not lie in sages. The soil lies beneath things and does not compete to be higher than them. Thus it is secure and in no danger. Water flows downward and does not compete to take the lead. Thus it moves quickly without delay. April 1, 2012 16. In ancient times, Shun plowed on Mount Li. After a year the farmers competed to occupy the stony fields while they relinquished the fertile fields to one another. He fished on the riverbank. After a year the fishermen fought to occupy the rapids and shallows while they gave the remote coves and deep pools to one another. During this time his mouth did not speak, and his hands did not direct with banners. He held a mysterious potency in his mind, and he transformed things so rapidly it seemed spirit-like. If Shun had not had this awareness, although his mouth could argue so cogently that every household would be persuaded, he would not have been able to transform even a single person. Therefore the way that cannot be spoken of is incredibly vast. Now he was able to regulate the San Miao and subjugate the feathered people, to move to the country of the naked, and to receive tribute from the Susha. It was not because he announced titles and proclaimed edicts that he was able to adjust their mores and change their customs. It was only because of his mental activity that he was able to do that. How could laws and measures, punishments and restrictions, enable him to achieve this? Therefore, sages internally cultivate the root of the way within them, and do not externally adorn themselves with its branches. They protect their quintessential spirit, and dispense with wisdom and precedent. In stillness they take no deliberate action, yet there is nothing left undone. In tranquility they do not try to govern, but nothing is left ungoverned. What we call no deliberate action is to not anticipate the activity of things. What we call nothing left undone means to adapt to what things have already done. What we call to not govern means to not change how things are naturally so. What we call nothing left ungoverned means to adapt to how things are mutually so. The myriad things all have a source from which they arise. The sages alone understand how to guard this root. The 100 endeavors all have a source from which they are produced. The sages alone understand how to guard this gateway, thus exhausting the inexhaustible, reaching the limit of the infinite, illuminating things without bedazzling them, and inexhaustibly responding to things like an echo responds to sound. This is what we call being released by heaven. April 1st, 2018 26. 1.10. Thus those who attain the way, their wills are supple, but their deeds are strong. Their minds are empty, but their responses are dead on. What we mean by a supple will is being pliant and soft, calm and tranquil, hiding when others do not dare to, acting when others are unable to, being calm and without worry, acting without missing the right moment, and cycling and revolving with the myriad things, never anticipating or initiating, but just responding to things when stimulated. Therefore, the honored invariably take their titles from the base, and those of high station invariably take what is below as their foundation. They rely on the small to embrace the great. They rest in the inner to regulate the outer. They act pliantly to become firm. They utilize weakness to become strong. They cycle through transformations and push where things are shifting. They attain the way of the one and use the few to correct the many. What we mean by strength of deeds is responding with alacrity when encountering alterations, pushing away disasters and warding off difficulties, being so strong that there is nothing unvanquished, facing enemies, there are none that are not humiliated, responding to transformations by gauging the proper moment, and being harmed by nothing. Therefore, if you wish to be firm, you must guard it by being pliant. If you wish to be strong, you must protect it by being supple. When you accumulate pliability, you become firm. When you accumulate suppleness, you become strong. Keep a close watch on what you are accumulating, in order to know the tendencies toward fortune or misfortune. Strength defeats what is not its equal. When it encounters its equal, it is neutralized. Pliability defeats what exceeds itself. Its power cannot be measured. Thus when an army is strong, it will be destroyed. When a tree is strong, it will be broken. When leather armor is hard, it will split open. Because teeth are harder than the tongue, they wear out first. Therefore, the pliant and weak are the supports of life. And the hard and strong are the disciples of death. 37, April 1st, 28 1/5/7. 1.11. To anticipate the right moment and initiate is the road to ruin. To follow is the source of success. 38. How do I know this is so? For most people, through a lifespan of about 70 years until they reach their death, they pursue things and then reject them, they divide them up and then reassemble them, and daily they regret what they are doing. Thus question Boyu 39 at age 50 had criticized himself for 49 of them. Why? Because those who anticipate have a hard time acting with wisdom. But those who follow have an easy time acting efficaciously. When those who anticipate climb up high, those who follow will pull them down. When those who anticipate climb down, those who follow will jump over them. When those who anticipate fall into a pit, those who follow will take counsel from this. When those who anticipate accumulate defeats, those who follow will avoid them. Looking at it from this perspective, those who anticipate are the target that draws the bows and arrows away from those who follow. It is as the hilt is to the blade of the sword, the blade suffers the stress while the hilt remains unharmed. Why? Because it places itself in the position of following and has a protected spot. 40. This is something widely seen in the vulgar world and among ordinary people, and the worthy and wise cannot avoid it. What we call following does not mean being stagnant and not developing or being congealed and not flowing. It is, rather, to value being able to revolve according to the norms and unite with the right moment. Now those who grasp the patterns of the way and become companions of alterations, their anticipation governs what follows and their following after governs what they anticipated. What is the reason for this? They do not lose what they use to govern others, i.e., the patterns of the way, and so others cannot govern them. 1/5/717. Time turns over and over. There is not a moment's rest. To anticipate is to overshoot the mark. To follow is to not fall short. The days turn round and the months revolve. Time does not play with mankind. Thus sages do not value a foot of jade as much as they esteem an inch's movement of the sundial's shadow. Time is difficult to gain but easy to lose. When you was chasing the right moment, if he lost his sandal, he would not stop to pick it up. If he snagged his cap on a branch, he would not even glance back at it. It was not that he was striving to anticipate the right moment, he was striving to attain it. Therefore, sages guard the pure way and embrace the limits of the feminine principle. They adapt to things and comply with them, they respond to alterations spontaneously, they constantly follow and do not anticipate. They are pliant and supple and thereby become tranquil. They are relaxed and calm, and therefore their minds are stable. They defeat the great and grind down the hard, and none is able to compete with them. May 1st, 2019 22. 1.12. Of all things under heaven, none is more pliant and supple than water. Nonetheless, it is so great that its limits cannot be reached, so deep that it cannot be fathomed, so high that it reaches the infinite, so distant it merges into the boundless, increasing and decreasing, draining away and filling up. It circulates without restraints into the immeasurable. When it ascends into the heavens, it becomes the rain and the dew. When it descends to the earth, it becomes moisture and dampness. If the myriad things do not gain it, they will not be born. If the various endeavors do not gain it, they will not succeed. It completely embraces the various things without partiality or favoritism. It seeps through to the tiniest of creatures without seeking their gratitude. Its richness sustains the entire world without being depleted. Its potency extends to the 100 clans without being expended. It circulates everywhere, yet we cannot exhaust it. It is so subtle that we cannot seize it in our hands. Strike it, and it is not wounded. Pierce it, and it is not injured. Chop it, and it is not cut apart. Try to set it alight, and it will not burn. Seeping, draining, flowing, disappearing. Mixing and blending, intertwining with things, it cannot be differentiated. It is so sharp it can pierce a hole in metal and stone. It is so strong it can give sustenance to the entire world. It dissolves into the realm of the formless, and soars beyond the region of the nebulous. It meanders its way through the rivers and valleys, and surges out into the vast wildernesses, depending on whether it is abundant or deficient. It takes from or gives to heaven and earth. It gives to the myriad things equally without preferences. Therefore, without being partial or impartial, gushing and undulating, it totally merges with heaven and earth. Without favoring the left or the right, coiling and swirling, it ends and begins with the myriad things. This is what we call perfect potency. May the 1st, 24/1/6/7. The reason that water is able to achieve its perfect potency within the entire world is that it is gentle and soaking, moist and slippery. Thus, in the words of Lao Dan, the most pliant things in the world ride roughshod over the most rigid. This is because they emerge from the non-existent and enter into the seamless. I thereby understand the benefits of taking no action. 41/1/6/910. Now the formless is the great ancestor of things, and the toneless is the great ancestor of sound. Their son is light. Their grandson is water. And both are generated by the formless. Light can be seen but cannot be held. Water can be held but cannot be destroyed. Thus of all things that have shapes, none is more honored than water. 1.13. Emerging into life, entering into death. From nothing treading into something. From something treading into nothing. We thereby decline into lowliness. June 1st, 2010 13. Therefore, clarity and tranquility are the perfections of potency. Pliancy and suppleness are the essentials of the way. Empty non-existence and calm serenity are the ancestors of the myriad things. 42. To quickly respond when stimulated. To boldly 43 return to the root, is to be merged with the formless. What we call the formless is a designation for the one. What we call the one is that which has no counterpart in the entire world. Majestically independent. Immensely solitary. Above, it permeates the 9 heavens. Below, it threads through the 9 regions. Though round, it does not fit within the compass. Though square, it does not fit within the carpenter's square. Multifarious, yet constituting a unity. Proliferating, yet without a root. It envelops heaven and earth like a sack. It closes the gates to the way. Mysterious and vague, hidden and dark. Its whole potency is preserved in its solitude. Spread it out, it never ceases. Utilize it, it is never exhausted. Therefore, though you look for it, you will never see its form. Though you listen for it, you will never hear its sound. Though you hold it, you will never feel its contours. It is a formlessness from which forms are generated. It is a soundlessness from which the 5 tones call out. It is a tastelessness from which the 5 flavors take shape. It is a colorlessness from which the 5 colors develop. Therefore, the existent arises from the non-existent. The real emerges from the empty. Because the entire world is encircled by it. Names and realities converge. The number of the tones does not exceed 5, yet their variations cannot be fully heard. The harmony of the flavors does not exceed 5, yet their transformations cannot be fully savored. The number of the colors does not exceed 5, yet their variations cannot be fully seen. Thus, as for tone, when the gong note is established, the 5 tones all take shape. As for flavor, when sweetness is established, the 5 flavors all become fixed. As for color, when white is established, the 5 colors all develop. As for the way, when the one is established, then the myriad things all are born. June 1st, 2015 23. Therefore, the guiding principle of the One spreads throughout the 4 seas. The diffusion of the One extends throughout heaven and earth. In its wholeness, it is pure like uncarved wood. In its dispersal, it is jumbled like murky water. Although it is murky, it gradually becomes clear. Although it is empty, it gradually becomes full. Still, it resembles a deep pool. Buoyant. It resembles floating clouds. 44. It seems to be non-existent, yet it exists. It seems to be absent, yet it is present. The myriad things in their totality all pass through this one portal. The roots of the 100 endeavors all emerge from this one gateway. Its movements are formless. Its alterations and transformations are spirit-like, i.e., unfathomable. Its actions are traceless. It constantly anticipates by following after. June 1st, 25-27. Therefore, in the governing of the perfected, they conceal their mental acuity. They extinguish their literary brilliance. Relying on the way, they set aside wisdom and, toward the people, act impartially. They limit their possessions and reduce their needs. 45. They cast off their ambitions, discard lusts and desires, and abandon worries and anxieties. Limiting their possessions, they see things clearly. Reducing their needs, they attain them. Now those who rely on their ears and eyes to hear and see, tire out their bodies, and are not clear. Those who use knowledge and deliberation to govern afflict their minds and achieve no success. Therefore, sages make use of the one measure to comply with the tracks of things. They do not alter its suitability. They do not change its constancy. Applying it as their level. 46. Relying on it as their marking cord. 47. Through the meanderings of life, they follow it as their benchmark. June 1st, 29 1/7/2. 1.14. Joy and anger are aberrations from the way. Worry and grief are losses of potency. Likes and dislikes are excesses of the mind. Lusts and desires are hindrances to nature. Violent anger ruins the yin. Extreme joy collapses the yang. The suppression of vital energy brings on dumbness. Fear and terror bring on madness. When you are worried, aggrieved, or enraged, sickness will increasingly develop. When likes and dislikes abundantly pile up, misfortunes will successively follow. Thus, when the mind is not worried or happy, it achieves the perfection of potency. When the mind is inalterably expansive, it achieves the perfection of tranquility. When lusts and desires do not burden the mind, it achieves the perfection of emptiness. When the mind is without likes and dislikes, it achieves the perfection of equanimity. When the mind is not tangled up in things, it achieves the perfection of purity. If the mind is able to achieve these 5 qualities, then it will break through to spirit-like illumination. To break through to spirit-like illumination is to realize what is intrinsic. Therefore, if you use the internal to govern the external, then your various endeavors will not fail. If you are able to realize internally, then the external can be attended to. If you realize it internally, then your 5 orbs 48 will be in repose. Worries and anxieties will be at peace. Your sinews will be powerful, and your muscles will be strong. Your ears and eyes will be acute and clear. Though you are placid and calm, you do not waver. 49. Though you are hard and strong, you do not break. There is nothing you overshoot, and nothing you fall short of. When you dwell in the small, you will not be cramped. When you dwell in the great, you will be unrestrained. Your soul will not be agitated. Your spirit will not be troubled. Clear and limpid, still and calm. You will become a hero. 50 to the entire world. 1/7/411. 1.15. The Great Way is vast and serene. It is never far away from your own person. If you seek it in what is close at hand, you will go forth with it and return to it. 51. When stimulated, you will be able to respond. When pressed, you will be able to move. Mysteriously subtle and inexhaustible. You alter without form or image. When you fully roam with the way, in complete abandonment, you will be like an echo to it or a shadow of it. Climbing up high and gazing down on what is below, you will never lose what you are hanging on to. When treading through dangers and traversing defiles, you will never forget your mysterious support. If you are able to preserve it here, then your potency will not diminish. The myriad things commingle in profusion, and you can revolve and transform together with them and thereby listen to the entire world. It is like galloping with the wind at your back. This is called perfect potency. If you attain perfect potency, then you will be truly content. Among the people of olden times were those who lived in caves and grottos but whose spirits did not depart from them, i.e., did not lose the sensitivity derived from the spirit. Among people of recent times are those who have the power of 10,000 chariots but who every day are worried and saddened. If we look at things from this viewpoint, sageliness is lost in governing people, yet it is found in attaining the way. Contentment is lost in wealth and station, but it is found in the harmony of potency. When you understand how to emphasize the self and de-emphasize the external world, then you will be close to the way. July 1st, 2013-18. What is called contentment? Why must it consist of residing in the lofty terrace or the elegant floral terrace, or roaming in the lake of cloudy dreams or sandy hillock? 52. The ears listening to the 9 shao songs, or the 6 yig pieces. 53. Or the mouths tasting finely prepared delicacies, or galloping on a level highway, or hunting the auspicious turquoise kingfisher. Is this what is called contentment? 54. What I call contentment refers to a person realizing his deepest realizatio, i.e., the way. Now those who realize their deepest realizatio do not find contentment in extravagance or grief in frugality. They close together with the yin and surge together with the yang. Thus when Confucius's disciple, Zixia, had conflict in his mind, he grew thin, but when he attained the way, he fattened up again. Sages do not allow their own persons to be enslaved by external things and do not allow desires to disrupt their inner harmony. Therefore, when they are content, they do not delight in it. When they are aggrieved, they are not distressed by it. Through myriads of situations and hundreds of alterations, they flow freely and have nothing fixed. I alone remain detached. I abandon external things and proceed together with the way. 55. Therefore, if you have the resources to realize it, the way, yourself, then, beneath the canopy of lofty forests, and in the bowels of the deepest caves, you will have what it takes to respond appropriately to your situation. But if you do not have the wherewithal to realize it yourself, then although you take the entire world as your own family and the myriad people as your servants and concubines, you will not have what it takes to nurture life. If you are able to perfect the condition of being totally devoid of contentment, then there is nothing that will not make you content. If there is nothing that does not content you, then you will attain perfect contentment. 56, July 1st, 2020-26. 1.16. Now setting up bells and drums, lining up wind and string instruments, spreading out felt mats and cushions, hanging up banners and ivory carvings, the ears listening to the licentious court music from the last Shag capital region. 57. Presenting beauties of an elegant complexion, setting up wine and passing around goblets all night into the next morning, powerful crossbows shooting at high-flying birds, running dogs, chasing crafty hares, all these may bring you contentment, consume you with a blazing passion, and tempt you to lust after them. But when you unhitch the chariot, rest the horses, stop the wine, and hold the music, your heart suddenly feels as if it is in mourning, and you are as depressed as if you had a great loss. What is the reason for this? It is because you do not use what is intrinsic to bring contentment to what is extrinsic, but, rather, use what is extrinsic to bring contentment to what is intrinsic. So when the music is playing, you are happy, but when the songs end, you are sad. Sadness and happiness revolve and generate one another. Your quintessential spirit becomes chaotic and defensive, and cannot get a moment's rest. If you examine the reasons for this, you cannot grasp their shapes, yet every day because of this, you injure your vitality and neglect your deepest realizatios. Therefore, if you do not realize the intrinsic nature that lies within you, then you will bestow your natural endowment of quintessential spirit on external things and use it to falsely adorn yourself. 58. It will not seep into your flesh and skin. It will not pass into your bones and marrow. It will not stay in your mind and awareness. It will not collect in your five orbs. Thus, unless you have an internal master, what enters you from the outside will not stop. Unless it is responding to something external, what exits from within will not be activated. Thus, when they hear good words and sound advice, even fools know to accept it. When they are told of perfect potency and lofty actions, even the unworthy know to yearn for it. Yet while those who accept it are many, those who make use of it are few. While those who yearn for it are many, those who practice it are few. Why is this so? Because they do not know how to return to their natures. When those whose intrinsic nature has not opened up within insist on studying potency and lofty actions, the words enter their ears but do not take hold within their minds. How is this different from the songs of deaf mutes? They simply imitate what others do, but they do not have the means to make music themselves. The sounds issue forth from their mouths, but they merely spill out and disperse. July 1st, 2818/9. 1.17. The mind is the master of the five orbs. It regulates and directs the four limbs and circulates the blood and vital energy, gallops through the realms of accepting and rejecting, and enters and exits through the gateways and doorways of the hundreds of endeavors. Therefore, if you do not realize it, your intrinsic nature, in your own mind and still want to control the entire world, this is like having no ears yet wanting to tune bells and drums, and like having no eyes and wanting to enjoy patterns and ornaments. You will, most certainly, not be up to the task. Thus the world is a spirit-like vessel, you cannot act deliberately on it. You cannot control it. 59. Those who attempt to deliberately act on it will be defeated by it, those who try to control it will lose it. Now the reason that Zhu 60 devalued the world and would not trade places with Yao was because he had the intention of leaving the world behind. Why was this so? Because he thought that you should act on the world by adapting to it, and not trying to force your own will on it. The essentials of the world do not lie in the other, but instead lie in the self. Do not lie in other people, but instead lie in your own person. When you fully realize it, the way, in your own person, then all the myriad things will be arrayed before you. When you thoroughly penetrate the teachings of the techniques of the mind, then you will be able to put lusts and desires, likes and dislikes, outside yourself. 61. Therefore, if you realize the way, there is nothing to rejoice in and nothing to be angry about. Nothing to be happy about and nothing to feel bitter about. You will be mysteriously unified with the myriad things. And there is nothing you reject and nothing you affirm. You transform and nourish a mysterious resplendence. And, while alive, seem to be dead. 62, 1/8/918. 1.18. The world is my possession, but I am also the possession of the world. So how could there even be the slightest gap between me and the world? Why must possessing the entire world consist of grasping power? Holding on to authority, wielding the handles of life and death, and using them to put one's own titles and edicts into effect. What I call possessing the entire world is certainly not this. It is simply realizing it, the way. Yourself. Once I am able to realize it, the way, the entire world will also be able to realize me. When the entire world and I realize each other, we will always possess each other. And so how could there be any gap between us to be filled in? What I call to realize it yourself means to fulfill your own person. To fulfill your own person is to become unified with the way. Thus roaming along riverbank or seashore, galloping with Yao 63. Or riding a chariot beneath a kingfisher feathered canopy, the eyes seeing the plumes of the pheasant dance or the performance of the emblems of King Wu music, the ears listening to lavishly clear, elegant, and rousing melodies or being stimulated by the licentious music of Zedk and Wei, or getting wrapped up in the stirring traditional ballads of Chu, or shooting at high-flying birds along the lake shore, or hunting wild beasts in hunting preserves. All these are things that average people find alluring and intoxicating. 64 sages experience them, but not so much as to dominate their quintessential spirit or to disrupt their vital energy and concentration or cause their minds to be enticed away from their true nature. To reside in a remote village on the side of a deep gorge hidden amid dense vegetation in a poor hut with a thatched roof on which grass sprouts up, whose door is overgrown by vines and which has small round windows like the mouth of a jar and a mulberry staff for a hinge, a hut whose roof is leaky and whose floor is damp, whose sleeping quarters are draughty and blanketed by snow and frost so that the grass mats are soaked, to wander in a vast marsh and ramble on the side of mountain slopes. These are things that would make average people develop dark moods and make them anxious and sad and unable to concentrate on anything. Sages live in places like this, but they do not make them worried or angry or make them lose what makes them content on their own. What are the reasons for this? Because they intrinsically have the means to penetrate to the mechanism of heaven, and they do not allow honor or debasement, poverty, or wealth to make them weary and lose their awareness of their potency. Thus, the cawing of the crow, the squawking of the magpie, has cold or heat, dryness or dampness ever altered their sounds? 65, August 1, 2018 1/9/4. Therefore when the realizatio of the way is secure, it does not depend on the comings and goings of the myriad things. It is not because of a momentary alteration or transformation that I have secured the means to realize it myself. What I am calling realizatio means realizing the innate tendencies of nature and destiny and resting securely in the calmness that it produces. 66, 1/9/67. 1.19. Now our nature and destiny emerge from the ancestor together with our bodily shapes. Once these shapes are completed, our nature and destiny develop. Once our nature and destiny develop, likes and dislikes arise. Thus, scholars have the established format of essays, women have unchanging standards of conduct. The compass 67 cannot become square, and the carpenter's square 68 cannot become round, nor can the Marking chord become crooked and the angle rule 69 become straight. The constancies of heaven and earth are such that climbing up a hill does not make you taller and sitting on the ground does not make you shorter. Therefore, those who realize the way, when impoverished, are not cowed. When successful, are not proud. When they dwell on high, they are not stirred by it. When they grasp a full vessel, they do not tip it over. They are new but not shiny. They are old but not faded. They enter fire but are not scorched. They enter water but are not drenched. Therefore, they do not depend on political position to be honored. They do not depend on wealth to be rich. They do not depend on physical force to be strong. Even and empty, they flow downward. And they soar upward along with transformations. People like these store their gold in the mountains, hide their pearls in the deep, do not profit by goods and wealth, do not lust after political position and fame. Therefore, they do not take prosperity as contentment, nor do they take privation as aggravation. They do not take honor as security, nor do they take debasement as danger. Their bodies, spirits, vital energy, and awareness each dwell in their appropriate activities, and they thereby follow the workings of heaven and earth. 1/9/713. The physical body is the abode of vitality. The vital energy is the source of vitality. And the spirit is what regulates vitality. If one of these loses its position, then the other two will be harmed. Therefore, sages ensure that each rests in its appropriate position, preserves its specific functions, and does not interfere with the others. Thus, if the physical body resides where it is not safe, it will be destroyed. If the use of vital energy does not match what replenishes it, it will drain away. If the spirit acts in an inappropriate manner, it will become darkened. 70. These three must be attentively guarded. September 1, 2015-18. 1.20. Now consider the myriad things of this world, even spiders and wasps, that creep and crawl. All know what they like and dislike, what brings them benefit and harm. Why? Because they are constantly guided by their natures. If it were to suddenly leave them, their bones and flesh would have no constant guide. People today can see clearly and hear acutely, their bodies can support weight, and their 100 joints can bend and stretch, they can differentiate between white and black, discern ugliness and beauty, and they can understand sameness and difference, and clarify right and wrong. Why? Because vital energy infuses these activities, and the spirit regulates them. How do we know this is so? In general, when there is something that occupies people's awareness and their spirit is tied up in it, when they walk they stumble over tree roots or bump their heads on tree limbs without their realizing it. If you beckon to them, they cannot see you. If you call to them, they cannot hear you. Their eyes and ears have not left them, but they cannot respond. Why? Their spirit has lost what it is guarding, its concentration. Thus, when it focuses on the small, it forgets the great. When it focuses on the inside, it forgets the outside. When it focuses on the high, it forgets the low. And when it focuses on the left, it forgets the right. When there is no where it does not infuse, there is no where it does not focus. Therefore those who value emptiness, their concentration is so refined that they take the tip of an autumn hair as their abode. September 1st, 2020. 26. 1.21. Now there is a reason why madmen cannot avoid disasters of water and fire, and why they cannot cross over obstacles like ditches and culverts. How could it be that they have no body, spirit, vital energy, and awareness? Despite this, they use them in a different fashion. They have lost the relative positions they are supposed to guard, and they have left their external or internal dwellings. 71. Therefore, if madmen make mistakes, they cannot compensate for them. They cannot strike a balance between activity and rest. Throughout their lives, they drag their withered bodies along the edge of mountain ridges and embankments, stumbling into filthy ditches and sewage pits. Although they were born the same as other people, they cannot escape their condemnation and ridicule. Why? Because their bodies and spirits have lost their relative positions. Thus, when the spirit rules, the body follows and benefits from this. When the body governs, the spirit follows and is harmed by this. People who are covetous and filled with desires are blinded by political power and profit, and are enticed by their lust for fame and station. If by surpassing the wisdom of others they hope to grow tall in the eyes of the world, then their quintessential spirit will daily be squandered and become increasingly distant from them. If they indulge in this for long and do not reverse this pattern when their bodies close down during daily activities, then their spirit will have no way to re-enter. September 1st, 28 1/10/5. Thus throughout the world, there are sometimes the misfortunes of people who lose themselves through blindness and stupidity. This is the same thing as the tallow of a candle. The more the fire burns it, the more it melts and eventually disappears. Now the more that the vital essence, spirit, vital energy, and awareness are tranquil, the more they will be abundant and strong. The more they are agitated, the more they will be depleted and aged. Therefore, sages nourish their spirits, harmonize and soften their vital breath, and pacify their bodies. They sink and float, plunge and soar, through life along with the way. In calmness, they relax into it. When pressed, they employ it. Their relaxing into it is like their taking off clothes. Their use of it is like shooting a crossbow. In this way, there are no transformations of the myriad things that they do not welcome, and no alterations of the hundreds of affairs to which they do not respond. 1/10/710